Have you just consistently got better?
I think so. I think every one of my books surpasses the book that preceded it.
And there is a dramatic, from those early ones, which were all crime writing, you've left crime writing quite happily?
Well, I wrote my LA Quartet. The LA Quartet is comprised of 4 novels: The Black Dahlia, The Big Nowhere, LA Confidential, and White Jazz. These 4 books cover 1947 to 1959 LA. Yeah, that is the era of my mother's LA. That is the world that I first glimpsed the day my mother died. I realized that I had contributed something significant to the crime fiction canon and made the determination that I never wanted to write another book set exclusively in LA, or write another book that could be categorized as a mystery, a policier, or even a thriller. I wanted to write big historical novels. That's when I conceived my Underworld USA trilogy.
Okay, well, before we move on to that, of those LA Quartet, many people, of course, know you because, or come to know you because of LA Confidential, which was made, which was made into a movie.
Yeah.
That must have dramatically changed your life, the fact that it was such a successful movie.
Well, it actually lost money in the States. It was a greatly appreciated movie and a critically praised movie. It wasn't as exciting to me as publishing a magazine article, but it sold me a lot of books.
Did you like the film?
I liked the film significantly, yeah. It was the best thing that ever happened to me that I had nothing to do with. I just got lucky.
And what did it mean to you then?
It was wonderful to see a reduced version of my book brought to the screen with such style and panache.
There are other books of yours being made into films.
They're all in various stages of development, but the motion picture business is richly dysfunctional, so don't hold your breath for something as good as LA Confidential.
You don't trust it. You can't trust something as good as LA Confidential again.
It happened once. I'm not holding my breath.
You're in your parents' world, really, with those books. Mm-hmm. So was it because your father was Rita Hayworth's business manager, wasn't he?
When I was a kid, he used to tell me that he went to bed with Rita Hayworth. And I didn't believe him. He was a artist. He was a con man and a poon hound from the gate. But about 10 years after he died, I was in a bookstore in LA and I saw a biography of Rita Hayworth in the window, and I went in and I looked at my old man's name in the index, and yeah, he was her business manager in the late 1940s and arranged her wedding to Ali Khan in Paris in 1949.
But given what you say about your father, and I hate to compare you with him given what you said that, but it's what people say about so many of your books. There's this mixture of fact and fiction.
Well, I know what my old man told me. And I know that his name is in the index of various Rita Hayworth biographies.
But you don't know what's true?
I suspected. Yeah, he was her business manager. I think we can take that to the bank.
But my point is as much about your books. It's what some people have criticized about your books, that they blur this line between fact and fiction. It's not fair.
I have written one memoir, My Dark Places, which is wholly truthful. It's my life story, my mother's story, and Bill Stoner's story. Then there are my novels. What I do in my novels, specifically my Underworld USA trilogy books, both published here in Great Britain by Century, American Tabloid and the Cold 6000, just published today, April 19th, is I've recreated history to my own specifications. I have real people doing things they really did and things they didn't do. And I have them mingled in with fictional characters and fictional situations. I want to create a cohesive verisimilitude, and that's it.
It has bothered people who are still alive or relatives of people who are dead?
No, I only use dead people because dead people can't sue you.
And they're relatives you've never had?
They are not allowed to sue. That's the law.
Obviously, but they've never come on irate to you?
No. It's just a book. People ignore books. That's the sad fact.
Why? It's a sad fact.
I'm a best-selling author, and people still, and by and large, in the big by and by, they ignore books. Hey, it's a book. So what?
They care more
it's a sad comment.
Does it annoy you that LA Confidential gets so much press just because it's made a film?
Because it sold a boatload of books for me.
Right. Yeah. It is. Do you feel that? I mean, as far as your writing is concerned, we're saying the recurrent themes about your parents. Do you feel that you exploited your mother's murder?
I exploited my mother's murder to sell books early in my career, and I redressed that wrong by writing this memoir for her.
So what would she say about your book writing now?
I don't know. I didn't know her. And I can't hypothesize or speculate. I don't know.
Did you exploit her murder in terms of subject material?
No. I told her story and reduced it to sound bites when I was publicizing my book, The Black Dahlia, which is based on, arguably, America's most famous unsolved homicide.
Now, though, do you exploit her murder? Or
Certainly
is it just
not.
that
You have to read My Dark Places. This book is the redress of that grievance.
But as far as, do you regret? I'm wondering now that it's brought up so often, because as people love your writing, but people also love your history. They love your life story.
I'll tell you, I have made a determination in the course of this interview. I will never answer another personal question again.
Why?
Yeah. It's over. My history, my personal history is all over the internet. Any journalist that wants to interview me can snag it off the internet and do whatever they want to.
Yeah, but it's not the journalist. It's the people who, anybody watching this, there'll be plenty of people who may not have read your books, but there'll be plenty of people who are deliberately watching this because they want to know about James Ellroy the person. And that's your personal history.
Yeah, that's okay. But from here on in, I think it has to be this. We have to keep the subject matter and all the conversation to the book at hand, which is America in the 1960s, my epic pop history. It's called The Cold 6000.
And before we move on to it, there's a reason that people, it's the reason that people want to know about you. You can't just, to plug your latest book, if only because of that. You must recognize there's an appetite for your story.
Yeah, and I know, and I've told it 9 million times, and I think that appetite for people has to go unsated from here on in.
Okay, well, let's move on. Let's move on to this
latest
book,
6000.
The Cold 6000. It is, in fact, let's start perhaps with, if you could read us a little bit from The Cold 6000, because it's, I suppose it's the evolution of your style. It is dramatically different when you look back a few books.
That's right. From the viewpoint of Pete Bondurant, Huey did heists. Huey robbed Mickey's game. Huey's face mask slipped. The players ID'd him. Pete had the flu. Pete took the night off. Mickey told Pete to kill Huey. Huey laid low. Pete found his pad, an ex-brothel in El Segundo. Pete torched the pad. Pete stood in the backyard. Pete watched the house flames. 4 shapes ran out. Pete shot them. Pete let them scream and burn. It was dark. Their hair plumed. Smoke blitzed their faces. The papers plated up. 4 dead in beach torch. The papers ID'd the Vicks. Ruth, Huey, Huey's girlfriend, and one Canuck doctor, Francois Bondurant.
Listening to that, many people are going to think it's just in that passage, but actually throughout your book you have these very short sentences. It's something you've done before, but never to this extent.
Right.
Why?
This is the language of American violence and bad white men doing bad things in the name of authority in the decade of the 1960s. This language, this style, is directly suited to the violence of the narrative and the violence of their internal and external lives.
But it doesn't make an easy read.
It's not an easy read.
But it doesn't make for ease of communication. There are many people who read that and just going to feel annoyed.
No, those are the wrong people, and those are the dumb people. And those are the people that don't deserve to read the book.
But you must have been amazed at the reaction to your book, that was one thing that has sort of consistently come out.
We have had 6 reviews here in Great Britain. 5 books praise the hell out of it. 5 reviewers have praised the hell out of the book. One reviewer said it was unreadable. And you know what? He was wrong.
You say your writing has got better. But so is the latest book definitely the favorite one, or do you have a favorite area?
Every successive book is better than its most immediate precedent, and this book is not as good as the book that will follow it. Because I have a covenant of consciousness. It is with me, it is with God, it is with my readers. I am determined to get better, to look into myself, to learn from whatever flaws I detect in previous works, and grow as a writer.
But how do you know that? How do you know that you're going to make it better?
I've always done it. And you know what? I have some very severe critics at Alfred A. Knopf, the greatest publisher in the world, my American publisher, my great agent, Nat Sobel, my wife, Helen Canode. And really, believe me, if I ever get one step lazy, they're going to be the first ones to tell me.
They'll tell you?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm wondering, I mean, if many people who've read your books will say this was my favorite, and maybe it might be The Black Dahlia, something that has, or even My Dark Places, which has a very particular reason for being.
But that's them. You can never gauge how your books will be assessed. You can only plumb the depths of your own consciousness and try to get better.
And there's always something to plumb in terms of something new.
Right.
Or you move on to new territory.
I want to show a greater diversity of character and motive. That's what I want to do. I show it in The Cold 6000. My women characters are better than they've ever been. My wife thinks it's my woman's book. And I did that deliberately. And I will find new territory to explore in the next book.
And as far as style is concerned, it's not just that you're getting bored. You want to challenge, a new challenge.
I want to reinvent the American language of violence. I want to reinvent and mess with and tailor the American idiom to my own specifications. This style draws on syncopation. It draws on strategic deployment of phrases in French, Spanish, and Yiddish. It draws on racist invective in hepcat talk. This is a complete reinvention of the American language.
Do you feel any need to communicate with as many people as possible?
I have an audience, and I have a growing audience. I write the books for myself, and thank God I've got people out there who love them. I'm grateful for that.
Do you rate yourself in terms of, in the American literary canon? Are there people better than you?
Sure, Don DeLillo, the guy that wrote Lieber and Underworld, he's better than me.
Are there
And
many
I haven't
others?
read widely enough to be able to tell you.
The Way Forward, then?
Yes.
This is the middle of a trilogy, the second one of
a trilogy.
a trilogy. So the third one is the same short sentences?
I don't know. I haven't started it yet. Yeah.
But it's the same, presumably the same reason exists.
No. This book, the Underworld USA trilogy, is my epic reimagining of America between 1958 and 1972. And the first book goes, which was Time Magazine's Novel of the Year in 1995 in America, covers 58 to 63, the Colt 6000, 63 to 68. The third book, 68 to 72. That's it. What style will it be? I don't know. I haven't written it yet.
Do you know that you're going to have no problem writing it?
Yes, I'll have no problem writing it.
You're loving the writing as much as you always have done? Or
I love it. I am passionately committed.
Does it bother you how people react to things? When I say, for example, the criticism, whether it's in Great Britain or outside Great Britain, of the style of writing.
I don't care. I don't care. The people that I love, the people that I care about, the critics that I care about, the publishing colleagues that I care about were blown away by this book, to the extent that they have never been blown away by a book of mine before.
Okay, why this subject matter?
I want to rewrite history in my own specifications. As a kid, I sensed that there was a private human infrastructure to great public events. By that I mean, I knew what the great public events were. I knew what they were in the 1960s, and I was unmoved by them. But I sensed that the great public players, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, John Kennedy, the mobsters of the era, had toadies, flunkies, goons, and leg breakers attending them, and I wanted to tell their story. This is history as seen from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Yeah. Bit players in Hamlet and the unseen implementers of American public policy at its lowest levels, which ramifies and affects the whole country.
Which makes many people presumably want to see your version of more recent US history.
Right. Well, I have to get hindsight first. But don't worry, I am determined to outlive Bill Clinton.
We've got hindsight already, presumably, on Clinton's years.
Give me some more time and let me outlive him.
And the US presidential election that we just had? Mm-hmm. Plenty of material there.
Fair and square. Bush won the election. They did 4 recounts, 271 electoral votes.
For a man who voted for Bush.
Yeah, I voted for Bush. You know why? To repute Clinton.
For now. Now you are a man living a sedate life in Kansas,
I
wife,
live in Kansas
dog.
City. I'm very happy. I am happily married to the single most brilliant human being I've ever met, my wife, Helen Canode. We have a dog. I live quietly and peacefully.
It's such a far cry from your 20s, isn't it?
What a ride.
It's not boring compared with that.
What a ride.
Does it feel like writing was your salvation?
What a ride.
That's how you view your life?
What a ride, yeah. Yeah, it's my salvation. God's my salvation.
So what now? What's the next thing that you conquer?
I finished this trilogy, and I write a book about America in the 1920s.
Going back?
Yeah, I'm going back.
So for those who might want your more recent thoughts, it's not going to happen?
Read my pieces in GQ magazine in the States. Sometimes they're reprinted in GQ here in Great Britain. Tune into one of the 3,300 Ellroy websites in America if you have a computer. I don't.
You don't have a computer?
I don't have a computer. Yeah.
So how do you write?
By hand.
Long, slow process.
Yeah.
Are you not interested in a computer, in updating the...
Nah.
Why not?
Nah. It works this way. If it works, don't fix it.
James Ellroy, thank you very much for coming on.
Sarah, God bless you.